The global economy is once again caught in a high-stakes trade war. President Donald Trump has imposed a 10% tariff on Chinese imports and a 25% tariff on goods from Canada and Mexico, sparking economic turmoil. China retaliated with a staggering 75% tariff on U.S. goods, sending shockwaves across industries, from skyrocketing car prices to disrupted supply chains. This conflict is reshaping global markets, so let's dive into the 7 biggest consequences of this escalating trade war. The auto industry is among the hardest hit by escalating trade tensions. A 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico, effective February 1, 2025, threatens North America's tightly integrated supply chain. Automakers like GM, Ford, and Stellantis rely on seamless cross-border trade for vehicle components that often cross multiple times during production. With over $110 billion in annual trade at stake, these tariffs will drive up manufacturing costs, leading to higher car prices for consumers. Automakers may be forced to shift production, renegotiate supplier contracts, or absorb financial losses. Dealerships could see declining sales, and ripple effects may hit consumer spending across other sectors. The industry's next moves will determine its resilience amid shifting trade policies. China is flexing its dominance in the rare earth metals market by restricting exports to the U.S. These elements are crucial for high-tech industries, including electric vehicles, smartphones, and defense systems. With China controlling nearly 60% of the global supply, its move directly threatens U.S. manufacturing. Finding alternative sources is both costly and complex, potentially leading to production delays and rising expenses. American tech and defense companies may scramble to secure these materials, accelerating efforts in recycling and alternative research. While new solutions may emerge, the immediate impact leaves many sectors vulnerable and could slow technological advancements. The U.S.-China trade war has turned the electric vehicle (EV) market into a battleground with a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs. The U.S. aims to shield domestic manufacturers such as Tesla and Rivian. However, China's heavy subsidies make its EVs globally competitive. These tariffs could backfire. Higher costs may slow EV adoption, while American automakers reliant on Chinese-made batteries face rising production expenses. Supply chain disruptions could delay new models, hinder infrastructure investment, and stall EV innovation. This standoff highlights the complexities of global supply chains. Protectionist policies may reshape the market, but at what cost? Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe button. This helps us reach more auto enthusiasts just like you. If the auto industry thought the 2022 chip shortage was bad, they might not be ready for what's coming next. The U.S. has ramped up tariffs on Chinese semiconductors from 20.5% to a staggering 50% by 2025, aiming to bolster domestic production. However, China is countering with potential restrictions on materials crucial for chip manufacturing. Semiconductors are the backbone of modern vehicles, powering everything from infotainment systems to advanced driver assistance technologies. A shortage could mean production slowdowns, delayed model releases, and an overall hit to vehicle innovation. The U.S. has been pushing to expand its domestic semiconductor industry with initiatives like the CHIPS Act, but building up infrastructure takes time. Until then, manufacturers will face tighter supply chains and rising costs, which could trickle down to higher car prices for consumers. The trade war is shaking up the U.S. energy sector as China slashes American oil imports, cutting off a crucial market. This decline in demand risks oversupplying the domestic market, lowering prices, and squeezing oil producers' profits. Meanwhile, China is expanding its energy ties with Russia and the Middle East, shifting global power dynamics and isolating the U.S. from key energy trade networks. These changes could reshape global markets and challenge U.S. energy strategy. As the U.S. pushes for energy independence through increased fossil fuel production, the accelerating shift toward renewables complicates the outlook. Balancing domestic oil output with evolving global demand will be critical to maintaining economic stability and competitiveness. The U.S. medical sector is an unexpected casualty of the escalating trade war. Facing a 50% tariff on Chinese medical supplies like syringes, needles, and PPE, the immediate impact includes rising healthcare costs and potential shortages of critical supplies. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the dangers of supply chain disruptions in medical essentials. Now, high tariffs could leave the U.S. vulnerable in future health crises as hospitals struggle to secure vital equipment. Increased costs will likely be passed down to healthcare providers and consumers, further straining an already burdened system. Although efforts are underway to expand U.S. manufacturing, building a robust supply chain takes time. Until then, the medical industry must navigate rising costs and logistical hurdles, all while ensuring patient care remains unaffected. The U.S.-China trade war is triggering a domino effect, disrupting international trade, supply chains, and economic alliances as tariffs escalate. Countries worldwide are reassessing trade policies to reduce their reliance on China. For example, the European Union has imposed tariffs of up to 45.3% on Chinese EVs, aligning with the U.S. Meanwhile, Japan and Taiwan are strengthening their domestic industries to limit dependency on Chinese imports. This shift toward protectionism is reshaping global trade strategies. New economic blocs and regional supply chains may emerge, but at a cost: higher prices, inefficiencies, and global instability. Industries and consumers face rising costs and supply shortages, making the future uncertain. The big question is whether this shift will lead to economic resilience or prolonged volatility. Verdict: a turning point or prolonged turmoil. As U.S.-China trade tensions escalate, industries worldwide face uncertainty. Rising car prices, supply chain disruptions, and an unpredictable EV market all raise a critical question. Can diplomacy resolve this economic standoff, or are we bracing for long-term instability? The global economy is more interconnected than ever, and the actions of one nation can have ripple effects worldwide. Will businesses adapt and innovate, or will industries struggle under mounting tariffs? What's your take on this trade war? Will it drive economic growth through self-reliance, or push industries into further crisis? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Piston Pundit for the latest vehicle updates and in-depth analysis. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. To further understand the ramifications of these sweeping tariff policies and the ensuing trade war, let's examine some key findings from recent research and data. Recent studies, including those published in the Journal of International Economics and by the Peterson Institute for International Economics, have shown that the imposition of tariffs typically leads to higher consumer prices, disruptions in supply chains, and, in many cases, reduced overall economic efficiency. For instance, empirical research demonstrates that tariffs can result in a cost shift, where businesses pass increased costs to consumers, thereby reducing disposable income and dampening economic growth. A notable study found that a 10% tariff on imports could potentially lead to an average price increase of 2 to 3% on affected goods in the domestic market. One of the most significant impacts of these trade policies is on global supply chains. According to reports from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, supply chain disruptions caused by trade barriers can delay production and increase inventory costs for manufacturers worldwide. These effects are compounded in industries such as automotive manufacturing, where components may cross multiple borders before final assembly. Data from the OECD indicate that prolonged trade tensions can lead to shifts in production strategies, with firms diversifying suppliers or relocating production facilities to mitigate risks. In the realm of technology, particularly in semiconductor manufacturing, research by the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has underscored the vulnerability of global supply chains to trade disruptions. With tariffs on semiconductors now increased significantly, the pressure on U.S. manufacturers to ramp up domestic production is immense. However, historical data suggests that building a competitive semiconductor industry from scratch can take years. Researchers note that during the previous chip shortages, companies had to cope with both production bottlenecks and significant price volatility. The current measures, such as the CHIPS Act, aim to address these issues, but experts caution that short-term market disruptions are likely. The trade war also extends its influence into global energy markets. Studies by the International Energy Agency, IEA, indicate that abrupt changes in trade policies can cause significant shifts in oil demand and supply dynamics. For example, when major economies restrict imports or exports, it can lead to temporary oversupply or shortages, impacting global oil prices. Furthermore, research from energy market analysts suggests that as countries like China adjust their energy partnerships, the traditional trade networks that many economies have relied upon for decades are being reconfigured, potentially leading to long-term shifts in geopolitical alliances. The COVID-19 pandemic brought to light the critical importance of resilient healthcare supply chains. Research from the World Health Organization, WHO, and several public health studies have demonstrated that reliance on a narrow set of international suppliers for essential medical supplies can jeopardize national health security during crises. With tariffs on medical goods now part of the current trade conflict, experts warn that similar vulnerabilities may emerge if domestic production capacities do not ramp up quickly enough. Investment in diversified supply chains and emergency stockpiles has been recommended by numerous health policy researchers to mitigate such risks in future crises. Overall, while short-term protectionist measures may provide temporary relief to domestic industries, extensive research suggests that prolonged reliance on such policies could lead to inefficiencies and reduced global competitiveness. Economic models developed by institutions like the IMF and the World Bank have repeatedly warned that trade wars, if unresolved, can lead to a downward spiral of reduced investment, lower innovation, and ultimately slower economic growth. Policy recommendations from these bodies often include multilateral negotiations and a return to more cooperative international trade practices as the most viable path to sustained global economic stability. This research-backed perspective reinforces the notion that while the current trade war is reshaping multiple sectors, from automotive to healthcare and beyond, the long-term consequences will depend heavily on how governments and industries adapt. Whether through diversification of supply chains, increased domestic production, or renewed diplomatic efforts, the global community's response in the coming years will be critical in determining whether this period marks a turning point towards economic resilience or a prolonged phase of instability.